In this video, I want to share some thoughts about Prigozhin's insurrection in Russia. I made a video with some initial reactions, and I still think they hold up. But I do have a few points to add, especially about why the coup didn't succeed and what it might mean going forward. So let's talk about it. Before I get into the core of the video, there is one question I want to address, and that is the question of whether the insurrection might in fact have been sort of a plot where Putin and Prigozhin are working together to trick everyone. Like, this could, for example, be to make a surprise attack on Ukraine from the north now that Wagner will be in Belarus. Like, I've received this question a lot, both on email and on Mastodon. The answer is unequivocally no. What Prigozhin did will have lasting and serious consequences for Putin's authority as a leader in Russia. A personalist autocracy like they have in Russia is absolutely dependent on the authority of the person at the top. So there has to be a sense of legitimacy and also a sense of inevitability about the leader. So people won't question his leadership. But what this has done is that it has revealed sort of cracks in Putin's system. Prigozhin's actions will inspire others to also think about what a future would be like without Putin. And it has shown that it is, in fact, possible also in Russia to plan and to prepare an insurrection without actually getting caught by the security services. So this is terrible news for Putin. So I feel very confident in saying this was definitely not a plot that Putin planned together with Prigozhin. Like, you don't undermine your entire grip on power in Russia just to get some dubious tactical sort of element of surprise. And anyways, if a force is assembled in Belarus to attack Ukraine, it will be noticed anyway. So the situation is that whatever it was that Prigozhin did, this was a direct challenge against Putin's authority. In Putin's eyes, Prigozhin is now a traitor. And basically, traitors deserve only one fate in Putin's mind. There is an interesting distinction, in fact, here between enemies and traitors. Like, enemies are supposed to be against you. That's sort of their role, so it's not personal. And with enemies, you can actually make deals, and maybe someday things can change and you're not enemies anymore. But traitors are people that you trusted who betrayed you. So there is no excuse for traitors, and Prigozhin is now a traitor. So I would say it's extremely unlikely that Putin and Prigozhin can ever work together again on anything. They are basically no longer on the same team. And in fact, it has probably come to the point where they both will have to try to get rid of the other one in order to secure themselves. Okay, so why did the insurrection fail? I will point to two factors. The first one is willingness of key actors to support a coup against Putin. Like, maybe Prigozhin was counting on sort of key figures and parts of the security forces to support this march of justice that he called it. This is the collective action problem that I talked about in the last video. But you can't just expect people to sort of revolt on a sort of sudden impulse. Like, it's got to be something that it has to be prepared. So there has to be this sort of simmering willingness to do something against the regime. I don't know if Prigozhin actually expected this insurrectionist sort of potential to be present in Russia, but clearly it wasn't. But what his actions have done is that they have now planted a seed in the minds of many people who will, from now on, be thinking about how they might act if this situation happens again. So the next time there is a situation like this, then there is a bigger chance that people will be ready to join the movement. And the other factor was that Ukraine's counteroffensive hasn't been that successful, like, at least not yet. We have not seen Russia losing a lot of territory. And Prigozhin has for a long time been coming with this message that the war is going terribly for Russia. And he's really been talking up the Ukrainian counteroffensive, like, even to the point where it's been it's actually been confusing what he's talking about. And he did that. He did the same when he launched the insurrection. So it was like he was trying to leverage some anger in the Russian population and in the military about how the war was going. But maybe he had sort of counted on the Ukrainian counteroffensive to go faster, like many Western commentators have also done. So the timing didn't work out for him because there wasn't really that sense of military collapse or urgency when the insurrection happened. So these are the two explanations about why the insurrection didn't work that I want to mention. The interesting thing about them is that they're both still valid. Like, I can't really figure out if I actually think that Prigozhin expected the coup to work, or if he was just sort of trying to lay the groundwork for a second go that will come later in the summer. Because I actually think that Prigozhin has put himself in a pretty good position for round two. Like, he's now going to be staying in Belarus, where he can continue to keep his private army and he can have training camps and so forth. And he has established himself as the most important challenger to Putin in the minds of many Russians. So I don't know, maybe this was the last we will see from Prigozhin, but these two factors that can be important if you want to overthrow Putin, like, they're still there. There is now planted a seed of insurrection in Russia. So next time people will be more willing to join the insurrection. But perhaps, I think even more interestingly, if you are a coup plotter in Russia right now, then you actually have a personal interest in Ukrainian success on the battlefield. Like, the best thing that could happen for Prigozhin right now is that Ukraine's counteroffensive is a massive success. And this is, of course, not only a personal interest for Prigozhin, but for everyone in the Russian system that is a part of the struggle. Like General Surovikin, for example. Like, can Putin really trust him to do everything he can to avoid the collapse of the front lines? Well, maybe. But at least there should be some doubt somewhere in Putin's mind about the loyalty of the system. And then, of course, leads to the obvious question of where is Alexander Lukashenko in all this? How did he suddenly show up in the middle of this Wagner insurrection and manage to make a deal? Like, well, it's often said that Lukashenko is 100% dependent on Putin to keep him in power in Belarus. But I'm not so sure that is necessarily the case. Like, Lukashenko depends on having a Russian president that is willing to help him, but I don't think that person has to be Putin. Like, and I think it's possible that Lukashenko decided that this Ukrainian war was a pretty bad idea and that Putin has to go. Like, I recently made a video where I explained that we are now at a point where the war cannot end as long as Putin is president. So if you're the president of Belarus and you want the war to end, well, you might want Russia to have a new president. Okay, it's getting speculative, and it's enough speculation for now. There are many things we don't know in all this. The important thing was just that we have to understand that there is a new situation now with new alliances, and we have to think different. There was a time before Prigozhin's insurrection, and there will be a different time after this where there are just different rules of the game, and we don't know them yet. But I think it is important that the potential for insurrection in Russia is greater now because of what Prigozhin did. But also, I think it's interesting and important that people in the Russian system who want to get rid of Putin, they will now have a personal interest in undermining the Russian war effort. So that can create some pretty interesting dynamics. I'm not here, of course, talking about those ultra-nationalist figures that are sort of deeply ideological about this whole Z thing. But I am talking about opportunists that really care more about themselves and their own power than about some ideological cause. And there are plenty of such opportunists in the Russian system. Okay, I will end it here. If you found the video useful or interesting, please give it a like and also subscribe to the channel and click the bell icon to get notifications when I upload new videos. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you again next time.